Hello again, and today I wanted to talk about this particular coin. You've probably seen this before if you've watched previous videos. I have been showing this coin and asking people to please subscribe, and of course don't forget to ring the bell. So after showing you this for many times, I thought maybe we'd just talk about what this coin is. And first of all, let's look at this side, and we can see here that it is indeed a Franklin $50. I'm sure most of my American friends already know that, and they probably know a bit about the history of Benjamin Franklin, who was on here. He was the oldest of the founding fathers, and probably the best known founding father who did not have the opportunity to become president. But definitely important. I think the United States would not exist today if it was not for this guy. But let's get over to what I really want to talk about today, and that's this. This is the Liberty Bell. And it has a very long and interesting history, and we'll get right down to it here. We'll starting in 1952. The Liberty Bell, 1952? No, 1752. The Liberty Bell was first created. The legislature of the Pennsylvania colony, which of course later became the state of Pennsylvania, had ordered a bell to be put into the tower and would be used for summoning the legislatures to meet, or perhaps to ring if there was trouble, and to ring for other important things as well. So the bell was delivered in 1752, and whenever a new bell arrives, it came in from the Whitechapel Bell Company in London. And a little bit about the Whitechapel Bell Company is that it also built the Big Ben, which is the famous 13-ton bell that is found in Queen Elizabeth Tower, the clock tower of British Parliament. And like the Liberty Bell, the Big Ben is also cracked. But it cracked because somebody didn't follow the instructions, and that Big Ben was supposed to be struck by a 20-pound hammer. Somebody set it up with a 100-pound hammer, and after a certain period of time of use and abuse, the bell cracked. Eventually, of course, the 100-pound hammer was replaced with the correct one, and the bell's been ringing ever since, though the crack does give it a distinctive sound. Now, the Liberty Bell was delivered, and in Philadelphia was set up on a rack to be tested. And as soon as they rang it in the test, it broke. It cracked. Now, did it break in two? Did its pieces fall off? I don't know. I've not been able to find that out. But it broke. Well, that's the easiest way to put it. It broke. So we ran into a problem. What are we gonna do? We'll have to send the bell back. But the ship that had brought the bell no longer had the room to load the bell onto it to be sent back. So a local foundry, a couple of guys, John Pass and John Stowe, offered to recast the bell. They did not have a lot of experience with bell casting, but they thought, yeah, we can handle this. And so they melted down the bell, put a little extra copper to it to make it a little less brittle, and in March of 1753 they delivered the bell. It was set up on a rack, and it ran into trouble. Normally when you ring a bell, it's supposed to go bong. Unfortunately, this bell that they had just recast was described by a witness as sounding like two coal scuttles being banged together. Now, I know what a coal scuttle is, and I can imagine that what two coal scuttles banged together might sound like, and it wouldn't be pleasant, but I'm not going to try banging a couple of coal scuttles to find out. But take my word for it, was probably not a pleasant sound. So the foundry guys took the bell and sent it back, melted it down again, and I guess they added a little more tin and probably a few other secret ingredients to make the bell then more likely to ring. And this time the bell was brought in, let's see, what was it, June of 1753, and it rang. And not everybody was happy with it, but it was deemed satisfactory, that's how someone described it. So up to the bell tower it went, and that's where it stayed until 1777, when the British in the Revolutionary War were heading for Philadelphia, and the decision was made that, well, if the British get to Philadelphia, they're going to melt down that bell and turn it into munitions. So the bell was taken down and very quickly sent to the place now known as Allentown, Pennsylvania. And it is kept there for 9 months. But when it was returned to Philadelphia, though, the legislative building was in such poor condition, the bell just was put into storage until 1785, when they were finally able to get the time and the money to get the legislator repaired and the tower repaired and put the bell back up into it. Now, here's the thing. The bell is cracked now. Now, I've just mentioned to you that when the bell was tested, it cracked the first time they rang it, and it's cracked again. So, what happened? The answer is nobody's absolutely sure. All that is known is that in 1846 there was a requisition. Excuse me, there was a requisition made, and that requisition still exists, and it was made to pay for the cost of repairing the bell. The bell apparently had cracked sometime before then. Perhaps, who knows? Maybe they rang in the new year with it, and it was too cold that night, and so cold weather doesn't get along with bells very well, and perhaps that's why it cracked again. But whatever the case, a requisition was done, and the bell was repaired in time to ring it for George Washington's birthday in 1846. But as soon as they rang it, though, they realized that the crack got worse, and so it was decided at this point that the bell was not going to be rung again. It just could not be done. But the bell became a popular item, and as I say, it's a symbol today of the United States, one of the symbols. And it toured through the United States back in the early 1900s. Unfortunately, it wasn't well protected, and there were people actually not only ringing it, but also deliberately striking the rim of the bell and knocking pieces off of it for souvenirs. That's what my mother would call uncouth behavior, to say the least. So eventually, the city of Philadelphia, who now owned the bell, said, "We're not sending it out on any more tours," and that's that. In 1976, the U.S. celebrated its bicentennial, 200 years since the signing of the Declaration of Independence. And they knew a lot of people were going to be visiting Philadelphia and would want to see the Liberty Bell, but where the bell was located in Philadelphia was not a good place to handle all these people. So a new display room was created. And over the years, the display has improved, and the bell today stands in a very nice room, complete with protection from vehicular bombs. Like if somebody decided they wanted to destroy the Liberty Bell by parking a vehicle close to the museum and detonating it, the building that the Liberty Bell is in is pretty solid and will protect the bell from getting any further damage. So that's the Liberty Bell, and a very interesting symbol. And of course, a lot of interesting things about the bell. I often mentioned that certain American politicians remind me of the Liberty Bell, and my friend would say to me, "What? Because they symbolize freedom?" And I says, "No, because they're cracked." One last little thing. April 1st. Remember, April 1st. Taco Bell apparently announced that it had purchased the Liberty Bell, and it was going to be put on display at their corporate headquarters in Irvine, California for 6 months of the year. Remember, this was April 1st. that this announcement was made. However, that still didn't prevent people from calling up the Independence National Historic Park, people who take care of the Liberty Bell, and I guess it got so bad that the Park Service had to put together a press conference and say, "We didn't sell the bell. We swear it didn't sell the bell. It's April 1st. Got it?" Apparently, though, it turned out to be good for Taco Bell. Their Tex-Mex food sold quite well after all this publicity. Anyway, that's the story of the Liberty Bell. A great symbol, and hopefully someday I'll be able to get to Philadelphia to have a chance to see it. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to ring it, or even touch it for that matter. It's now kept out of people's reach because you still get a few crackpots, no pun intended, who try to come in and try to hit the bell or try to do things to it, or maybe even want to break off a souvenir. Nope, they're not having that anymore. So the bell is kept out of reach of hands and hammers. So anyway, that's the story then. A little short story of the Liberty Bell. There's lots more in the history of the Liberty Bell, and in fact how it got its name, because it wasn't called the Liberty Bell when it was initially cast. It was called that in reference to as a protest against slavery, and that the slogan on the bell was "Proclaim liberty throughout all the land unto all the inhabitants thereof." It's a quote from the Bible, the book of Leviticus, verse 10. And somebody who I guess we got abolitionists is what they were called, people who were against slavery at the time, back in the 1830s, remarked that the bell does not proclaim liberty to all the inhabitants thereof. A valid point. There is another story saying that the bell was rung when slavery was ended in the U.S., but that's not likely because, again, it was already cracked and was not being rung, so there was no way that it was rung for that. So that's another little tidbit of history. But for more information, of course, lots of great books there. Just check out your favorite online bookstore, Amazon. Type in Liberty Bell. There's lots of books to be had. Some of them for children, some of them more detailed and technical for adults. And always remember, of course, you like this video, please give it a like, please subscribe, and of course, don't forget to ring the bell. And don't worry, that bell won't crack no matter how hard you hit it. So hit it! Thank you, and good day.